We are his people, the sheep of his flock. So often we hear this metaphor of sheep in the church. Throughout the year we've heard it. Good Shepherd Sunday, we have this reading, Jesus saw them and they were like sheep without a shepherd. It's something that's very common for us to hear. Perhaps even some of us have a picture or a painting of the Good Shepherd in our homes. And in this metaphor, we're the sheep and he's the shepherd. So good so far. However, if we think about sheep, they're not exactly the strongest, most fearless, smartest of all the animal kingdom. So what's going on here? Is the Lord insulting us? Is he saying you're like sheep? But the sheep do have something in which they are particularly good at. They are good at following the shepherd. And when they follow the shepherd who in this beautiful psalm, Psalm 23 from the Old Testament says, I am the good shepherd. I will lead you to verdant pastures and running waters. You prepare a table before me. Abundance, water, food, all of the things that we need. The sheep might not be the strongest, fiercest, smartest of the animal kingdom, but when he follows the shepherd, he has the shepherd's intelligence. He receives the gifts of the shepherd. In today's gospel, we see Jesus who is moved with compassion for these souls that he encounters. And just before the passage, Jesus had gone through this incredibly crazy 48 hours where he's curing sinners, Simon Peter's mother-in-law. He goes out early in the morning. By the time he gets into the boat, he's completely exhausted. So it's even more impressive that he's coming to this place with his disciples and he sees the people. And it's one of those things that when you've had a really long day at work and it's 5 o'clock and you've been waiting just to clock out, and then your boss comes with a project that's going to last 4 or 5 hours. Somewhat of that human feeling must have been what the disciples experienced and what Jesus himself experienced. When they're coming up to the shore and we're going to go rest, we're going to go to this great place, seize the weekend. And he gets there and he sees thousands of people. And his heart is moved with pity. And the word that's used there is not a superficial type of pity, like, oh, poor guys. No, it's a deep, visceral movement. It's a deep compassion. He's looking into their eyes, seeing their need. Just as he looks into our eyes, just as he looks at us. And Jesus, in this gospel passage, chooses his apostles and disciples. He sees a need. He sees that the laborers are few and the harvest is great. And what does he do? He comes up with a 10-point plan and pushes it out. What does he do? He calls 12 disciples. He invites them, and what does he invite them to do? He invites them to be with him. In our culture today, I think we have what some have dubbed hurry sickness. We're hurrying from one place to another. Busy is the number one description or response to the question, so how are you doing? Busy. Or busy, and that's good. Jesus calls us to be with him. And it's incredible because it's in this context that he was going away to rest with his disciples and he shows up and sees all these people there. And he goes and he calls his disciples and he doesn't send them out at first frantically. Go and do this and do that and bring them food and all of these things. He will do that in due time. But the gospel literally says he called them to be with him. He calls these 12. And who does he call? Probably dating myself now, but some of you will remember the movie Men in Black. And there's this scene in the movie where they're doing this insanely difficult test. And Will Smith, who's the character that plays the leading role there, and he asks one of the other military guys that's there, he's like, what are we doing here? And the guy looks at him and he says, we're here because we're the best of the best of the best of the best, sir. And Will Smith just kind of looks at him like, okay. Jesus didn't call the best of the best of the best. He called Peter and John and James and Matthew. He called Judas, who would betray him. He called ordinary people like you and me. He called them because he wanted them. He wanted us. He didn't want just some group of people that everyone would look up to and no one would want to be able to follow. And he invited them, as we have said, into prayer, into wasting time. There's a beautiful description of prayer by the late Father Thomas Green, who's a Jesuit spiritual director, wrote some very beautiful books. He said, prayer is wasting time gracefully, being with the Lord. How contrary that is to the worry, sickness of our times, to the description of our lives as being busy. And we're called to communion. And it's only in that communion that we, each one of us, who are called to be disciples of Christ, can actually do something for others. Hopefully, each one of us could name at least one person in our lives that we are a support for. Someone that we can be there for. Perhaps we're not doing it. Perhaps we are. Perhaps we're tired of doing it. But the gift of ourselves that we're called to give to others, the support, the accompaniment, doesn't come from ourselves. It comes precisely from this union with Christ. The compassion that we're called to live for others, the ability to forgive, doesn't come from our own strength. Sometimes when we see the gospel's demands of forgive our enemies, it looks really good on paper, but then when we get to our real lives, it's like, this is really hard. I can't do this. You're absolutely right. You can't do it. You were never supposed to do it by yourself. Jesus wants to live his compassion in you, if we'll let him. But we need those spaces with him. And finally, what is the evidence that this is working? Joy. The disciples are filled with joy. We just finished the Easter season and we were sent out at Pentecost. And we see these disciples, these same 12 guys that were complaining about everything and asking dumb questions and not getting it right. They're sent out after Pentecost and now they're getting it all right. No, they're not getting it all right. They're arguing amongst each other, but they're filled with joy. They're going out. They have courage. They're trying. They're getting up, falling and getting up again and again and again. And they're going out and miracles are happening. Because even in their human imperfection, they're lending themselves to this mission. And this mission fills them with joy. So if we're not experiencing the joy that we desire in our lives, if we're feeling like something's missing, I want more out of life than what I'm getting now, be a disciple. Spend time with Christ and go out with him to serve and love others. And if you start doing that, you'll begin to experience this joy that he promises. So in this week, as we go out and face our daily lives and challenges, I would invite you to do two things. First, look for a few unhurried minutes. It can be 1 or 2 minutes, hopefully a few more. But it's enough to take 1 or 2 minutes to just sit with the Lord and allow him to speak to you. And then from that place, go out and do an act of service and love for those around you.